artist himself, John Ross Palmer, and we're going to discuss his international series, Dublin 2011. First impressions of Dublin.
Green. I had no idea. We went to Berlin last year, which is a very green city when we were there in the summertime. But Dublin, and I guess probably most of Ireland, we just didn't travel outside the city, is very green.
It's my job to plan a trip for John where he truly experiences that city.
So first impression is green, alive, fresh, clean. We stayed at a beautiful hotel right on the Liffey.
We stayed on the River Liffey. Our hotel was right there, and you know, there's a huge street and these gorgeous buildings and pubs and everything, and the Supreme Court's right there.
The Clarence. It is a property and hotel owned by Bono of U2, which is very exciting.
One of the major research projects for me was to find him an art studio.
And my studio was, which I'm sure that's going to come up in a minute, was about a 1.5 mile walk.
Miraculously, somebody wrote me back from Broadstone Studios. They have space and they'd love to have John, and it was in Dublin too, where our hotel was, so it was very much walking distance.
Which was so nice in the morning. Ryan and I would have our coffee, and I'd have a nice walk to the studio, and then a nice walk at the end of the day too. But at the end of the trip last year, Ryan said, I'm going to get you your own studio next year. And that was so significant for me.
Last year, John and I created an exclusive group of his art collectors that would underwrite and sponsor his international trip.
It's just to have that space that's sacred to create is so powerful.
This year, we really wanted to keep that group involved, and so towards the end of 2010, we presented the group with a selection of 3 cities, and they were Rome, Zurich, and Dublin.
The First Class Club is a very special group of collectors.
And asked them to submit a short essay on which city would be the most meaningful and inspiring for John to do his next series.
That by invitation only are invited in to be a member. Again, we have 10.
A local celebrity would be choosing the winning essay, and Chief Meteorologist Frank Billingsley at KPRC. I thought he was the perfect choice because, you know, he makes predictions.
And these collectors facilitate the study abroad.
And he pulled out the winning essay in Dublin. FCC member Scott and Yvette Hill, they wrote the winning essay.
Ryan and I have planned it is to visit all these locations before I start creating.
Found a lot of our destinations through internet searches.
The locations that inspired me the most, I would have to say they were all equal. They were so methodically thought out with Ryan and some friends.
We had an inside friend from Ireland. Her name's Geraldine McCowan. She still has lots of friends and family in Ireland and in and around Dublin.
I met John and Ryan through my friends William Watchell and Chris Otis. William has been a collector of John's art from John's original days. And when myself and my sister and her husband would go over to William's house, there were 3 paintings that stood out and hit us in the face, and we were like, wow.
I have to acknowledge some help in this regard. I was at my computer a lot, but Amanda and Susie that helped us at the gallery, they helped a tremendous amount.
And William told us it was John Palmer, and he took us along to an open house at the gallery, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Detailed and organized in a binder that I'd put together.
And so we really focus on the travel to the 11 locations, which I think it'll always be 11.
That's now sort of a standard with his international series. There's always going to be 11 pieces.
And then I'm released kind of in a way, and Ryan does his own thing, and then I do mine, and mine is creating the art.
So that's the reason there's only 11. You know, it's limited, very unique. So that's why we went to one of the first 11 postal districts.
I'm an accountant. I have lived and worked in Dublin and in London for 20 years before I moved to Houston 6 years ago.
Ryan found that space for me. I think it was in Dublin 4. It is an old building. It was built in the 1850s. It was a building that housed governesses after they would retire.
Okay, I'm one of these, I will go anywhere, and wherever I hang my hat, that's my home. But Dublin is my home, right?
I was told this situation by our friend Geraldine, of course. She's explained to me that the city of Dublin is divided by a famous river. It's called the River Liffey.
So it was about 60 studios in this building as a retirement community for these ladies. So each studio had a fireplace, beautiful mantel, had a sink, had a small pantry, great window.
To the north of the river are all the odd-numbered postal codes, and to the south of the river are all the even-numbered postal codes.
And it was maybe about 250 square feet, but it was a perfect encapsulated space to have area to work, and the fireplace, which of course we didn't use, but it looked very nice.
When I left Ireland many years ago, like 24 years ago, it was in a recession.
Over time, the north-south division has sort of translated or become a stereotype of if you're north of the river, you're more working class.
And it was funny that John Palmer chose to go to Ireland when Ireland is in a deep depression.
South of the river, you're more middle to upper, more affluent class.
And I kind of knew what he was going to be faced with in terms of what the people were feeling at the time. But John also got there at a very, very good time, just after Queen Elizabeth had made her first state visit to Ireland, the first by an English monarch in over 100 years.
Obviously, there's some very nice things north of the river, for example, but just as a stigma, it truly exists.
And also President Obama had been there the week before John arrived.
If I can present this to John and show him a little taste of one of each of these postal codes, that would be tremendously inspiring.
No matter how bad times are in Ireland, people are always fantastic.
So here's what happened. We got there on June 1st. First stop was Dublin 2, which is where we were staying, and we went to St. Stephen's Green.
St. Stephen's Green, you know, it was just this kind of feeling that we all want life to be. That kind of like, I feel like I can stroll in the park, but how many of us don't feel we can do that? Or if we think we're gonna go do that, then we're 10% into it and we have to stop because we have to do something else. Just that time for us to be is so limited. I decided to have my lunch in the park, and I went to McDonald's. Anything in moderation is good. I get a small hamburger, my small fry. I look for perfect green space right on the water. The ducks are there. I'm gonna set up my food, and then as I'm going to my area, I see a man to my left sitting right on the water, leaning back, reading his newspaper.
And fortunately, one of our planned stops, Dublin 8, was on the bus tour.
That is so beautiful that you have time to do that. How does he let his mind relax? Because I feel like I've been in therapy and worked for 15 years to be able to just to stop for 10 minutes and do something that feels non-productive. All of a sudden I'm there for about 30 seconds, I get a big whiff of marijuana.
John thought it was overwhelmingly beautiful.
So it made me even feel better about my progress in life, that I feel I can do all that. To slow down and enjoy the process, because we're always so busy creating the journey, but we're not thinking about it. Then all of a sudden we're the governess, nobody wants us in the nursing home.
And it was Kilmainham Jail. Hundreds of years old, it's no longer a working jail.
The jail was a powerful place because that's really where I learned a lot of the history of Ireland getting its independence from Britain, and I didn't understand what they had gone through.
And I also have my brother JJ in Dublin and my sister Mary, who were also very, very good in giving me useful tips and information to feed on to John and Ryan for the trips.
This man that was executed, he was 18 years old for just wanting freedom for his country.
I kept up with the blog and on Facebook, and it was fantastic. I think Ryan did a fantastic job.
This is even more painful to hear, that they allowed him to get married 4 hours before they executed him. They showed all these places where the executions happened and what the life story of these people.
Obviously all of their followers would be interested, but especially me, in what was going on over there. And he loaded the right number of photographs.
So our next day we needed to knock out 3 more stops, and we stayed to the south of the river. We went to Dublin 4 and went to the Aviva Stadium.
We were looking for the stadium.
Massive rugby stadium.
All of a sudden you see this mountain, and it's the stadium.
It's just like all these little shields.
Shingles of glass.
Every day, and like the right kind, and I was like, oh, I can't wait for them to come back.
I go around the side and I see a gate open with the lock laying next to it. I mean, these fences are like 20 foot high. I mean, it's like a prison lockdown the way they lock up these stadiums. And it reminds me of my experience with football when I was growing up.
I Googled, destinations in Dublin 6, and I found this pub, Rosie O'Grady's.
Took a cab to the location.
Fortunately, we got there at about 10:38 a.m. and I just was a little nervous because a lot of these like British and Irish pubs, they don't really open till noon.
And as the cab pulls up, we're trying to see if it's open, and Ryan wanted the cab to wait for us if it wasn't.
But we were fortunate, it was open.
Of course it's open, we're in Dublin.
We went in, we had a beer, I know it was early.
So of course we have a beer, and we have a Jägermeister. It was just a beautiful building, it was all red, and on that piece of art I did when I painted the bar Rosie's, I used this really bright candy apple red. All my paints I mix, I never use anything directly. And so the intensity of the red is just great. And I took the photo of the building from across the street, so Ryan's in front of Rosie's, but he's so tiny, you wouldn't even see him unless you knew to look for him. So it just shows in that piece, for me, humans, we come and go, we're all here, we think we're so mighty, but it's all about what we get through the process of it, because we all come and we all go.
And there is actually the snobbish divide, right? So you've got the Northsiders and you've got the Southsiders. The Southsiders don't like going to the North Side, and the Northsiders don't like going to the South Side unless they really, really have to.
Creating art, when I first got there, what is very important for me, Aaron, is to set up my space. My brush is here, I have my pencils lined out, and I don't think this is like a crazy organizational kind of system I have.
It's fun.
Because I think a lot of artists are known to be messy, whatever. But for me, that allows me to work more efficiently and to do a better product at the end of the day instead of having to find a pencil for 30 minutes.
The thing is, right, when you went out and you were meeting people, and you'd say, so where are you from? And they'd say Ballsbridge, and you'd think, oh, that's Dublin 4, okay, I can talk to them.